Well, welcome to the CanBR.com Giants Hot Stove Show. And this is one of my favorite parts of the week where me and my good friend Marty Larry go face to face and we talk about the Giants off season. And it's been a fairly eventful off season thus far. Marty, good to see you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back. And boy, last time we talked, a lot of speculation about what could happen, and the Giants stepped up to the plate, and things have changed. The landscape has changed, and look, the Dodgers have changed, Arizona's changed, and it's what baseball's all about.
Well, let's start. Let's hit a bunch of topics today because we got a lot to get to. Why don't we start with the latest, which is Johnny Cueto signs a 6-year, $130 million contract with the first 2 years. He can opt out after 2017. The first 2 years go for $46 million, so 23 on average for the first 2 years. The total average annual value of the contract is a little bit over $21 million. The Giants have a 6-year agreement with him, technically, with a 7th-year option that the club holds. Before I give you my thoughts, why don't you give me yours? What do you think of the Cueto signing, and what did you think of the actual contract?
Well, I like it. When we ended the season in October, we both agreed that the Giants needed one thing, and that is to fortify the pitching staff. So if you told me October 5th that they would have Samardzija and Cueto as the two guys to step into the pitching staff, I'd say, I'll take it right now and I'll see you in Scottsdale. So with all the travels and the trails that we go through in free agency, this one I think worked out. They need innings. And we'll talk about the money. The money is who cares about the money? It's not our money. What do we care? We want to talk about the player. So they got two guys who can give them 200 innings. You put that in there with Bumgarner. Now the pressure is off of PV to go to the back of the rotation. Kane, we'll see what's going to happen with him. I like it. Johnny Cueto, if healthy, and we're assuming the MRI, everything is healthy, is one of the top pitchers in the National League. And he's been that way for the last 4 or 5 years. So he, to me, becomes a 1 and a 1A. That's when there was Greinke out there, there was Price out there, and there was Cueto, then Zimmerman. So the Giants got one of the top 4, and I think that's huge. Samardzija, on the other hand, is a guy who probably is a better National League pitcher. His arm is good. He gave up more hits, home runs. He was Barry Zito of the American League last year. But he's now coming back to the National League, and the challenge of being in this ballpark with a guy who's got the 95-mile-an-hour fastball, who now will learn how to pitch a little bit more differently, I think is terrific. Larry, anytime now they go into a series, and let's say they set it up and it's Bumgarner and it's Cueto and Samardzija, you got to be pretty happy with that. The other thing it does, it gives you innings so you don't kill the bullpen. There are going to be some new pieces in this bullpen, and you don't want to put a lot of pressure on them right away. So from my point of view, I think they did everything they had to do of getting this guy. The opt-out, who cares if he opts out? If they get 2 great years out of him, fine. They're with the Cubs, they're the favorites to go to the World Series. They'll win a World Series again. So over a winter, what more can you ask for? They spent $220 million. They spent the money. They wrote the checks. I like it. I don't see any problem with it. And it takes Beatty and the rest of that whole crowd and puts them another couple of years down the road without pressure. So a long-winded answer. I like it. I think they hit it right on the mark. And if this guy is healthy, they're going to be very, very good. We'll talk about Arizona and the Dodgers. But for the Giants, they now have a rotation. And that's all they needed. Health and a rotation.
Yeah, no, I like it as well. Samardzija, here's the negative, is that Samardzija and Cueto in the second half of the year combined for a 5.29 ERA. So neither had a great second half. I'm much more concerned about Cueto than Samardzija. I agree with Sabian wholeheartedly that durability was a real attractive aspect of Samardzija. And Marty, that's might be my fear. Anytime you're throwing big coin at a starting pitcher, there's the injury factor, and that's my only concern with Cueto. And they checked him out. They said the elbow's okay, but this guy also, had an MRI on that thing in May. He didn't have good numbers with the Royals in the second half of the year, and that's my only question. If Cueto's elbow is sound, I think it's a slam dunk win-win for both. I actually prefer to see Cueto opt out after the 2 years because that means he's had two outstanding years. If there's any fear in either of those two deals for me, it's year 5 and 6 of the Cueto deal because of the durability factor. But right now they say he's healthy. He threw 96 miles an hour in Game 2 of the World Series. He was outstanding in the World Series. And to me, I really think the Giants looked at that start in the World Series against the Mets as the key factor because he had two really bad performances in the playoffs. He got ripped against Toronto. But, man, the way he answered the bell in Game 2 of the World Series, to me, put him back on the map as a viable arm that you'd want to bid top dollar for. They landed him. They have, as you said, the innings are vital. Now you can push, as you said, the whole group of young starters, Clayton, Blackburn, and Beatty. Now they can just surprise you. If they go to Arizona in March and they're lights out, then maybe you go to them in June after they get a couple more months in the minor leagues. So I think overall, if you're a Giants fan, you got to be thrilled with Samardzija and Cueto because, as you said, you now have the depth in the rotation that it can match anybody in the division, and you may have a better rotation than the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. We're going to find out come April.
Well, let me say this. How nervous were you last year every time you had a Dodgers series knowing Kershaw and Greinke would be in that series? Well, anytime you get a big series knowing Bumgarner and Cueto are going in that series, they now have that pitching staff to go in and dominate again in any short series. And the numbers you throw out are American League numbers. It's a different world. It's a totally different game. These guys in the National League are different pitchers. And I think if they're healthy, the key is health for Cueto. If he's healthy, you're getting a guy his last 4 years in the National League. He's got some of the best numbers of any pitcher in the league. Plus, he's a little crazy, which is good. And he gives a little bit of style to the ball club, to the pitching staff. I like that. And he's got the hair and, the whole deal. He walks into this clubhouse. I'll tell you another thing. The Giants remind me of the Yankees of the 50s and 60s. When a guy came to that team, he became a different player. He didn't mess around. And I'll tell you, the press conference yesterday, Cueto was very serious. He is humbled to be part of the San Francisco Giants. And I think that's going to be a pretty exciting thing to see when he takes them out.
That's a good point. I'll say one thing. I know the Giants look at that rotation and say, okay, we got that finished. But I would say pause on that. If it was me, I would like to see the Giants get one more arm, not a starter, not a reliever, but a guy who could be in either role. Because you look back at last year, Matt Cain made 11 starts. Jake Peavy, I think, made 19 starts. The two of them, Marty, combined for less than a full season of a starting pitcher. Now they're a year older. Are we supposed to expect that Cain and Peavy will be able to give them more this year? They hope, but realistically, I don't know that that's realistic. So I would feel more comfortable if the Giants had a Despaigne or somebody who has made 20 or 30 starts in the big leagues who maybe they could slate in the back of their bullpen where if they get to May 1st and Cain says, my elbow, my shoulder, or Peavy says, you know what, I got dead arm stage, instead of having to go to kids, they could go to somebody who's an established veteran. And I threw out Despaigne because I really like what he does, but somebody of that ilk, Petit moved on to the Nationals. Heston's most likely going to be that sixth-man guy. But it would be nice if they had one more dependable long man who they don't worry at all, that they know that could be put right into Cain's spot or Peavy's spot if those guys falter physically. That would be my one concern for the pitching staff. I actually believe that they don't need anything else in the bullpen or the rotation other than this one more guy who could man a couple of different roles for them and to kind of get them through the 162. Give me your quick thought.
Yeah, you may need that, you may not. But let's face it, when we last talked, you had Bumgarner, then you had Peavy, then you had Cain. Where are we going with this thing?
Sure.
And you were hoping you had Heston in this thing as well. So that whole landscape has changed. In a perfect world, you're right. You'd like that long guy in the bullpen to be someone who could step in if there's trouble with Cain and Peavy. I don't think you can say you got to get him because it's probably going to be a young kid. They're probably going to make it Heston. maybe a Blackburn, maybe somebody else. And I'll tell you something, as crazy as it is, next month down here in Arizona, Lincecum is going to throw for everybody. What if he comes out in the workout throwing 93 or 92 or 90? Maybe you bring him back, and I'm just saying this not to alarm everybody, but maybe you bring him back to be that guy that you just described. Maybe you'd rather have Lincecum rather than Despaigne.
I would if what the scenario that you painted is the scenario that unfolds. If he's 90 to 91 or 92 or even 89, I'd be somewhat intrigued by having him fill that role. But last we saw him, he was 84, 85, 86, and those were great years, but that's not great velo on your fastball. And you know what? No more of Lincecum at 85 miles an hour. If he can approach 90, let's talk. If he can't approach 90, man, thank you for your contribution, but goodbye.
No question. The 4-5 spots are now 4-5, not 2-3. They were the way they were before. So now that they're further back in this rotation, but there's no question. It's a red flag. It's a question mark. Peavy, you probably feel more comfortable with than Kane, because Peavy, just about every start he gave you the 6 innings. Kane, you don't know what you're going to get from him. So you're right. That is something that's still part of this ball club that they're going to have to figure out and hopefully keep their fingers crossed.
All right, you're going to say no, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. If we're going to look back and you're looking for a guy who can start and relieve and step up big in a big situation, Ryan Vogelsong, what do you think of? I know Bobby Evans has discounted it. Heck, Vogie himself discounted it in September. But I'm looking around and thinking, man, is he going to get an opportunity to be a starter somewhere? Probably not. And if Lincecum, barring Lincecum going to Arizona in January and throwing 90, which I think would be a huge thing and an unbelievable turnaround. Let's say he's more like 86 and they pass. And you're still looking for that piece to the puzzle, and it's, January 15th and Vogie's still out there. To me, Marty, that's the guy. He was touching 94 on the gun in his last couple outings of the year. And I know, there are a lot of people that want to turn the page on him. But to me, he's such a bulldog. He's such a competitor. He fits in your clubhouse. He's a stand-up guy. If they get to that spot and Lincecum's not the guy, maybe Vogie is the guy. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you why. Because when you bring in a guy like that, let's say there's trouble early on with Peavy or Kane, or trouble in May with Peavy and Kane. So you have Vogelsong who could step in. Let's say he gives you 3 weeks, 6 starts. By that point of the season, you should know what Heston is doing. Imagine he's in Sacramento. You'll know what Blackburn is doing. You'll know what Beatty is doing. Bickford is further down the road. So what Vogelsong or that kind of guy gives you is time to bring up another pitcher in June. So the key for me is get Peavy and Kane through at least June, and then let's see what happens, because now you're in the July possible pick up a pitcher, or your minor league guy may be better. So the bridge could be a Lincecum, if it's what you said, or even a Vogelsong. I don't disagree with that. You need a bridge guy until the young guys are ready, or until the trade deadline. And that's why I would like a Vogelsong.
Yeah, a couple good candidates there. All right, let's take a look at left field. Interesting. I mean, the Giants were talking, or at least the Giants fans were talking Cespedes, Justin Upton, Alex Gordon. There were rumors at the winter meetings that the Giants were very passionate about adding Alex Gordon. I think they feel like his market has gone up, and that they were kind of waiting for it to, go down and maybe get him at a bargain. But Larry Baer threw something out during the Cueto press conference that I thought was kind of interesting, somewhat alarming, to be honest. He actually suggested that maybe there was a 6-year free agent that could impact the left field situation, and I think he was referring to Kyle Blanks. I know the Giants have a lot of good thoughts about Christian Arroyo's bat, and Mac Williamson did an incredible job in the fall league. I know there are a lot of Giant people that really perked up when Jarrett Parker hit 3 bombs against the A's in September. What kind of piece do you think the Giants are looking at in left field, Marty? Because I'm not as militant as some of the other hosts on the station about spending the money. I want to see them spend the money and go get an Alex Gordon or a Cespedes. But if they made a trade out of their minor league surplus, of which they have a full complement of young arms, and they could get a Charlie Blackmon or they could get somebody in a trade that was a younger player who didn't make a lot of money. To me, it's not about the dollar figure as much as it is about the effectiveness of whoever they put out there in left field. And then also, it's like, do you need somebody who can play center? Because you don't know about Pagan, and you have Blanco there, but not a lot else. So what is your feeling on what you think, who's viable for left field, what kind of player, and what kind of dollar figure do you think they're going to commit to left field?
Well, I don't think they're going to commit a lot. I don't think the Gordons, Uptons are set. I think that's out of the Giants' range now. Now that they went for Cueto, I think that's it money wise. Marlon Byrd. I think Marlon Byrd becomes a very viable person on this team again. Marlon Byrd loves hitting in this park. He's great in the park. He's a gap-to-gap guy. He can reach the seats in left field. He's not going to cost a ton of money. And again, you're looking at a bridge guy until maybe Williamson gets here. So I think it's a trade for maybe not the Blackman. It's probably a pretty big price for him. But maybe a trade for someone who could be a platoon guy in left, or maybe a Marlon Byrd. And then again, you want to wait till Williamson, give him his 250 at-bats at Sacramento, give him his 60 games, and see where he's at mid-season. Maybe he'll be ready to do it. But I think I would go back to Marlon Byrd.
Okay. I got another name for you.
Go ahead.
Dave Fleming tweeted out this week that he felt like Ender Inciarte, who's now in Atlanta, would be a nice trade option. Inciarte had a really nice year last year, and he, in a lot of ways, would be the perfect piece. Now, he might cost you Tyler Beatty. He might cost you a premier prospect. And John Hart, by the way, has done an incredible job this offseason at picking off some really top-tier guys from around MLB. And I know he's not in a rush to trade Inciarte, who doesn't make a lot of money. But, man, Marty, Inciarte would be a real nice addition for the Giants. Would you be willing to trade a package of a prospect, even a top-tier guy, to get a player like that from Atlanta?
Absolutely. He's a top-of-the-order kind of guy. He's got like 5 years of control still coming, whatever. He's got a lot of control coming. Yeah, I think he'd be wonderful. And I think a trade is a viable way to look at this thing for Bobby Evans. I'm still waiting for the Bobby Evans touch to figure this thing out. You could sign Cueto. I could sign Samardzija. We could do all the moves so far. I'm waiting for that artist to come in as the general manager and make that signature move to fill a couple of spots. Let's see how that works out. I'm still waiting for something like that.
Is it possible?
Today, you know what I was thinking about today? I was thinking about Jonathan Lucroy from the Brewers. Now, he had a concussion last year.
Catcher.
He's got a couple more years of control. That they clearly want to move him. What if you made a move for Lucroy and you gave up a belt? And you had Lucroy and Posey as the catchers, and you could move Posey down to first base. Let's forget about left field for a second. I'm just thinking of people who may be out there who the Giants should consider. Lucroy came to mind for me because the Brewers want to move him, and they're in a pickle now. Is he healthy, not healthy? Maybe the Giants could pick him off. But left field, I'm back to with you. I think it's time for the Bobby Evans signature move. If he can pull off Inciarte, I'll shake his hand.
Okay, now that would be a trade, and it would cost you something. It might cost you Tyler Beatty. I would do it. But there's a guy out there, and I was just in the hallway talking to some of the KBR sales guys, and they're like, ask Marty, if the Giants are out on the top-tier free agents, what does he think of Gerardo Parra? Now, Gerardo Parra is interesting, Marty. He hit 300 against right-handed pitching. He can play the outfield corners. He can really only play center field for a week, a month. He's not an everyday center fielder all season long, but he could definitely fill in there. The guy's got a tremendous outfield arm. He runs well. He's in his prime. It's probably going to cost you a contract. My guess, Marty, is like 3 years, $25 million, maybe 8.5 per, something like that. That might be in their budget, despite the fact that that Gordon and obviously Cespedes and Upton probably are not, but Parra may still be in their financial range. What do you think of that marriage?
Not bad. Then you could platoon him with a Williamson if you wanted to. You could even, I don't know, Bird, where his money would fit in, but you could have Bird and Parra possibly. We thought about Parra last year, but Parra was Blanco. The thing about Blanco, these guys are going to be 32, 33, 34. The outfield is getting a little old. So you may need Blanco in center more than you want, and therefore Parra in left could be helpful. Last year, it was either Blanco or Parra. You didn't want both of them. But for now, you could use Parra in left field. It's not a bad choice.
Now, Larry Bear threw out 6-year free agents. One of the guys that they've signed as a 6-year free agent is Kyle Blanks, who's a big right-handed power hitter. A lot of people feel like he may contribute in left field. What do you think of going into spring training with just kind of a mix mosh of you've got Pence in center, Pence in right, Pagan in center, and a left field that includes Blanco, Williamson, Parker, and Kyle Blanks, and just letting those guys, going into base with as is, and then seeing how March kind of comes down and making whatever move you make for left field in the month of March. What do you think?
I'd rather have Bird than all that. And I know they have Blanks. I mean, he is here. They're going to give him a shot. He's like the Maxwell of last year. But I think I'd rather have Bird for 2 years at 11 than go in with that kind of mixture. I'm more concerned about center field because I think you're going to see a lot of Blanco in center field. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of him in left. And I think you got to get a right-handed hitter for left field, a right-handed hitter. And that's why I would go with the Bird. Parra's a left-handed hitter. Williamson could be down the road. Blanks is a right-handed hitter. I would rather see a veteran. But look, Larry, the reality of it is they've spent $220 million for the two pitchers. There's probably very limited money to go out and get anyone for like $25 million right now.
Let me paint a picture for you. You're in March. You spend the entire month in Arizona. There is no month of the year that I'm more jealous of you, Marty, than March, when you're sitting there in Cactus League games and I hear the pitches exactly with your hat, and I'm sitting here saying, "You're right, Gary." No, but let me ask you. I'm going to paint a scenario in March, and you tell me how the Giants react. They get to March, they play the Cactus League, and the third best hitter on the team in March is Christian Arroyo. And he's ripping, and he's hitting 400. And he looks good at short, and he looks pretty decent at second. They're trying him at third, and he looks decent at both those spots. And then, you know what? He's hitting the ball so well that someone says, hey, why don't you throw him out in left field, see what he looks like? And he does okay. If Arroyo, who ripped it in the fall league, and you talk to baseball scouts all the time, if his bat continues to progress, and he's a panic, he's a posy, he's an NL top 10 type hitter, is there a chance at the age of 20 that he breaks north with the club in some capacity because his offense is so overwhelming that they just can't keep him out of the big leagues? What do you think?
No, I think spring training is one of those times of the year where the fastballs are being thrown, and we know Belt hits 600 in spring training all the time. I'd like to see Arroyo do that and make the most of his chance. But I think the best case scenario for him is Duffy got lucky last year, and he got to be at third base with all the injuries going on, and McGee wasn't doing anything. I kind of see Arroyo going to Sacramento at best and starting there and seeing what happens. I don't see him grabbing the left field job. I don't see it happening. And I don't see him being a backup in the infield because he needs at-bats at AAA. He's never had an at-bat at AAA, and I think he's got to get some at AAA.
He's a special offensive player, according to the people I'm talking to. And let's before we say goodbye, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the National League West. The Dodgers today or yesterday backed out of Hisashi Iwakuma. Iwakuma went back to Seattle on a one-year deal, and the Dodgers have obviously Kershaw at the top of their rotation, and they're trying to fill in behind that. There's a lot of speculation. They were involved in the Todd Frazier deal. Frazier went to the White Sox. A lot of people in LA are critical of the Dodgers for not actually landing Frazier themselves. Instead, they got Trace Thompson, who's Klay Thompson's brother. They got Frankie Montas, who's a fastball slider combo is filthy, throws almost 100. And they got a Micah Johnson, who's an athletic young second baseman. And I'm sure they feel like Friedman feels like he's filled 3 holes. But there's also a lot of speculation they may load up on a big prospect deal to try to land Jose Fernandez. They're also talking to Mike Leake. They're kicking tires on Wei Chen. They're looking at a bunch of different pitchers. What do you think of the offseason LA's had? What do you think they're positioning to do?
Well, number one, the most important part of the offseason is Greinke is not there. It changes the whole Dodger rotation. Let's face it, you got Kershaw coming in. You may have McCarthy coming back. You got Brett Anderson. And then after that, let's see what they do. The scariest thing is Jose Fernandez. Whether, he comes in and all of a sudden you got Fernandez and Kershaw to face in a series. So my feeling is they're going to do something. If they get Mike Leake, I think they've weakened their team. I think it's Farhan Zaidi and Andrew Friedman. We're going to figure this out. We're smarter than everybody else. We're going to get all these prospects. Then we're going to make a trade. They're going to move Howie Kendrick or something like that. So I think it remains to be seen what they do. But if they do anything short of Jose Fernandez, it's been a great offseason for the Giants. Yeah. That's my feeling. Yeah. Anything short of Jose Fernandez, we can work with.
You know what's another interesting trend? I was discussing this with Fitz earlier in the week. There's been this has been the offseason where we've seen movement, but movement within the division that you're comfortable in. David Price knows the NL East or the AL East. He signs in the AL East with Boston. Greinke knows the NL West. He signs in the NL West, but with Arizona. Jason Hayward knew the NL Central from his year with the Cardinals, signs in the NL Central with the Cubbies. John Lackey stayed in the division. And I'm just kind of wondering if you think if there's any cause and effect related to the unbalanced schedule. The fact of the matter is you play these teams in the division so much that you almost become a specialist where guys used to be a specialist as far as league. Now it's almost like they're a specialist within their own division because they may see the other league as much as they see the other divisions in their own league. So I'm just kind of wondering if you think that has anything to do with that, or do you think it has more to do with like off-field issues where, hey, I'm comfortable in this hotel, I'm comfortable in this time zone, my family is comfortable here, and so we're going to move, but we're going to move within the division. We've seen a lot of movement, but within the division for the most part. Give me your quick rundown.
It's the money that determines everything. But look at Arizona. Arizona is the same exact team as last year, except now they have Greinke and Shelby Miller. Does that make Arizona like a world beater? I'd like to see them play. Let's see what they're still Arizona. They still have that infield. They have the catching. They got Goldschmidt and they got Pollock. And now they got Greinke and they got Miller. That's Arizona. More power to them. In the old days, you'd play a team 22 times. So you'd see a starting pitcher 6-7 times. Now it's 19 times. You still see a guy 6 times. I think it's important to get people who can pitch well against your teams in your division. I think that's important. But I'm not worried. The Giants are back as favorites as far as I'm concerned. The Dodgers are weaker. Arizona has Greinke and Shelby Miller. Otherwise, look at their bullpen. You still got Brad Ziegler as the closer. You still have Coleman. It's still the same Arizona team. Plus, they have the bullseye because they went out and got Greinke. So I think for the whole offseason, the Giants are in great shape. I like the way the division is playing out. And apparently Las Vegas does too, because the Giants are the co-pick to win the World Series with the Cubs.
Well, it should be a hell of a race. Giants, Dodgers, Diamondbacks. Are we discounting Padres and Rockies? What do you envision for San Diego, Marty? Because A.J. Preller was the star of last year's offseason. It didn't work out. Now they've changed out their manager. They went with Andy Green, I believe, as their manager. They did bring in John Jay from the Cardinals for Jed Jerko. I thought that was a really nice pickup. I love what I saw to John Jay. But what do you make of those two teams? The Rockies don't seem like they can ever figure out how to pitch successfly in their ballpark, and I don't know what to make of the Padres. I mean, Preller a year ago I thought was the hottest name in the game, and they fell flat. It didn't work out. Where are those two teams?
Look at the under-over for wins for the Padres in Colorado. 92? 90?
No.
Tell me what to stop. 88?
I would say it's 80. 80.
2? 80?
80 for the Padres, 75 for the Rockies.
Oh, you just answered your own question.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't pitch. They're still the same kind of team. They're still in transition. They haven't figured it out. The Padres are awful. The Padres couldn't do anything right, and they don't even have Kimbrel to close it anymore. So I think that ship has sailed as far as I'm concerned. I'm telling you something. I think the Giants did what they had to do. If they are healthy, If everybody comes back healthy, the way they play baseball with their bullpen and everything else, I think they're in great shape. I think in October they said, get me 2 starters. You got 2 of the best guys on the free agent market, and what more do you want?
All right, let's finish with this. Cubs Giants, co-favorites according to Bovada.com. 6-1 co-favorites to win the World Series. The Red Sox are the third choice. Right now, who's the best team in the game? Right now.
Right now, the Mets.
Mets. Okay.
Yeah, because they bring those 4 guys at you. You know, the Met. You could say you could put 90 in for the Mets. I think. I think you can do that. I think you give me that starting pitching for the Mets, and I still think they're very strong. You got to have a great bullpen. I'm not sure the Met bullpen is where they want it to be, but you give me this is Washington of last year, so to speak. You know, with all the starting pitchers. I mean, you take those 4 guys, and Wheeler's coming back. They just signed Cologne. I still think if I want to take $50 and take a long shot, I'm going to take the Mets.
All right, Marty, good stuff, man. Happy New Year, happy holiday season to you and your family. I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk more ball after the holidays. It's always fun to rap with you and chop it up, and we wish you nothing but a great, successful 2016, my man, and keep it rolling.
I want to tell you, with the moves, I can't wait.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
I'm telling you, I can't wait for the story, the mosaic.
The mosaic.
It's starting to come together. There's little pieces of the mosaic that are out there. Let's see how they fit in. But for the Giants, honestly, they said get 2 pitchers. They got 2 pitchers, and let's play baseball. Let's see who now can play. I think it's terrific. I think it's very exciting. I can't wait for the story to start. I really mean it.
For me, Marty Larry is the best guy talking hot stove. For me. All right, Marty. Good stuff, man. We'll talk to you soon. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays to you and Gary and everybody up there. I miss you guys.
Oh, we miss you as well. It'll be Fan Fest before we know it. You'll be in Scottsdale before we know it, and we're going to have another exciting year talking Giants ball from hopefully through November in the World Series.
Just get everybody healthy and let's see what happens.
Sounds good, Marty. Good to see you.